It's that time of year again. We're getting ready for Q4. I said back in January that Q4 was only 9 months away, right? And whenever you look back, you're like, wow, that time really did go by. And that's a good thing, right? Because you're wanting to go ahead and sell those Lego sets. You're wanting to go ahead and raise that capital so you could buy more retiring Lego sets, right? So I'm Jim with Wolf for Bricks. If you haven't already, please don't forget to like and subscribe. And we're going to talk about some things that you may need to do whenever it comes to prepping for Q4. Let's get it. All right, everybody, and welcome to your Q4 pregame show. Let's call it that. I, of course, am Jim. It is the pleasure to be here with Haley, who is a part of the Wolf of Bricks team. I'm so glad you're here. And the cool thing about this was your idea, right? I have no idea what I was doing. I was walking the dog and I received a text from you. And you said, hey, I have a great idea for a video, not just one video, but 3 videos. And I said, you know what? I think this is a really, really cool idea. So we're just going to go ahead and talk about it. So what exactly can we look forward to with Q4? And what are there certain steps to do when it comes to executing Q4 successfully? So I have been doing this for quite a few years now. And I think it's a really good idea to have someone who is seasoned and someone who is not so seasoned, so everybody could compare and contrast what exactly is going on during Q4. I don't by any means want to hype it and say, Q4 is insane, this is it. But guess what? It kind of is. The majority of our sales come during Q4. We will have a little bit of carryover in January and things of that sort, and we will have spikes during Mother's Day and Easter and things of that sort. But we really want to talk about, I know for myself, Haley, whenever it comes to Q4, for me, this may seem obvious, but it's definitely worth mentioning. You want to figure out what you're going to sell, right? You absolutely need to figure out what you're going to sell. And you want to be a little bit flexible too, right? These aren't necessarily hard and fast things that you're doing, because at the end of the day, you're on your own timeline, right? One of the cool things about reselling is you don't necessarily have a boss that you're reporting to, right? So for me, I say to myself, what 15 SKUs, maybe 20, maybe a little bit more, but usually what 15 to 20 SKUs do I have dead set on selling? Now, one of those things that will help me decide what I'll be selling is to see what the current price of those sets are right now. For example, maybe an hour or two ago, I was checking out the price on the Ford F-150 Raptors that I picked up during Q4 last year, right? They are at a very good price because I bought them at a very low price, right? So that's definitely going to be on my list of things to sell. Now, this is the first time for me, and I've said this often, every year you want to do something, not necessarily doing it different for the sake of doing it different, but you want to pivot if you need to, right? So for me, and to be honest, I feel a little bit humbled saying this, a little bit vulnerable saying this, but there are some sets that I just want to get rid of, like the ATST Raiders, right? I have around 350 of those. And if I haven't said it before, I'm going to say it now. When I was in Brickworld, Chicago, I found a guy that was selling the ATST Raiders for $60. And I said to myself, I like that price. Let me talk to this gentleman. And I said to him, listen, I see you're selling ATST Raiders for $60. That's a great price. Would you be willing to purchase maybe 350 of those ATST Raiders for maybe between $30 and $40? And he laughed. And he said, I have over 400 of them, so I don't plan on purchasing anymore. But the ATST Raiders is definitely something that I just need to get rid of. I absolutely hate saying cut your losses, because I try to really never have any losses during Q4, but this is one of those times that I'm going to be doing that. So I know that was a pretty long-winded step, but you want to identify what exactly you want to buy, and you also want to identify what prices you're going to sell those sets at.
Yeah, as this is my first Q4, the idea of which sets to sell is kind of new to me, right? I don't even know what's retired that I have. So one step that I have to do is go through all my old inventory and say, well, which ones are even retired yet? And then, as you were saying, there are some that I know are retired that I'm probably going to cut my losses and try to just break even on, I don't have 400 of anything, but I got onesies and twosies,
Right.
that I might want to get rid of just to be able to use that money somewhere else. Because if you're not getting a return on investment and you don't expect that to go 3 or 4x beyond, then you're just wasting money by holding on to it. And from my perspective, I'm all about the the compounding interest. Thank you.
Right.
Yeah. So if you're not getting interest at all for years, then nothing's compounding. The process of going through, because I was not smart about the SKUs, I didn't find your channel early enough.
Right. Right.
And I have hundreds of SKUs. And so I'm going in and doing onesies and twosies of everything and just saying, okay, well, has this retired? Has this not retired? And I have a massive spreadsheet and I'm trying to go through each theme and determine on each theme which sets from each theme I can pull to sell this year.
Yeah, and let me just say, when I'm talking about getting rid of inventory, it's not necessarily cutting my loss sets. There's also those damage sets, right? Because over the course of a couple years, and to be honest, if I, off the top of my head, I probably have less than 15 damage sets, right? So the bad thing about that is it's a small number. So it's easy to forget those sets. And then Q4 2024 comes and you're like, oh, I didn't get rid of those 15 damage sets, and look at that, I have 10 more damage sets now too, right? So yeah, there's a lot of determining what you need to get rid of, and it's not just about losses. The funny thing is you and I really haven't had our one-on-one consultation yet. So what I'm about to say, I could only guess at, but one of the common things when it comes to VIP members, when they show me their inventory, is they have grown rather wide, right? And it's not as tall as what they would like, or even what I would like them to do. So there is some time to also get rid of those. And I'm just spitballing here. Maybe that one Beauty and the Beast Bella set that you got for 40% off at a Walmart or something like that. And then once that's out of the way, the more of the onesies and twosies that are out of the way, you could also focus on growing tall and just kind of maximizing your efforts.
Yeah, absolutely. Make it a bit simpler to manage.
So another thing for me is, and the reason why I made this YouTube channel is so people could have a faster learning curve than I had. So for me, I really didn't realize this until year 2 or 3, but you really want to eventually do more buying than you are selling during a Q4, right? And the thing about it is, if you are a greener person, there may be opportunity for you to have more time buying. And what I mean by that is, I've said it quite a few times, my first, second, and maybe even my third Q4, I was done selling before Thanksgiving, right? And then I had all of my buddy resellers come up to me in December, first week of December. They're like, "Are you still killing it?" And I'm like, "Heck yeah, I'm still killing it." And I was already looking towards the next year, right? But you really do want to get to a point where you have all your ducks in a row. Everything is streamlined whenever it comes to selling, and you could focus more and more on the buying piece. And that's something that I'm definitely thinking about more than me selling, which, I kind of have the luxury that my warehouse is out of state and I have someone managing that during Q4, and we'll have some extra employees come in. But yeah, I am totally focused on how much capital I have at the beginning of October, not the beginning of Black Friday week or anything like that, but the beginning of October. And then I want to see, what that cash flow is, what's coming in, what's coming out, and what things I'm buying, so I could have a successful Q4 2024 and a successful Q4 2025. So that's another thing that I'm just trying to do and is constantly on my mind for the upcoming months.
How long did it take to get to the point where you could afford to have a bigger buying season than selling season?
So I started buying in 2012, right? And it was probably 2015 where I was like, okay, I'm in my rhythm, right? That's when the light bulb went off. And then when 2016 came, that's whenever I looked at the last couple years and I said, Jim, the numbers don't lie here. What you really need to do is you really need to cash out all of pretty much your life savings. You need to cash out your 401k, which I know is taboo for all the Dave Ramsey fans out there. But you need to cash out. I liquidated over 40 grand of gold and silver. I did a lot of liquidating. And whenever I got to that point, it was go time. I mean, I was just pulling the trigger on everything, not everything, but everything that I wanted to purchase, right? That kind of catapulted it to 2018, where it was just off to the races. 2017 is, I mean, you could say it was off to the races, but 2018 is whenever I started messing around with the interest-free credit cards, and I was, I started accumulating $30,000 of interest-free debt. So things snowballed, and it was 2019 is whenever I would say it was an avalanche. That's whenever I started to have my inventory fulfilled by someone else.
Because I was looking at my budget, because it is my first Q4, really. I mean, we've been investing for a little while, but it's the first time that I'm like prepping and actually expecting to sell a lot at once versus just holding for like 10 years, right? I figured it out. You don't have to hold it that long to get value out of it. But yeah, it was just, I did not plan ahead enough to budget for having that expendable income in Q4 to the level that I want, right? So we've got a little saved, but it's not what I want. So if I get the sales in September, October, then I can go hard in the purchasing period. I'm interested to see what happens with my own inventory, and
right.
when we do our update, whether or not I can buy what I want to buy.
Right. And here's the thing, and this may be obvious to some, is things may not go exactly the way it does compared to what you want it to do in your head. But again, I don't want to say this again because it might turn into an excuse. But at the end of the day, you're on your own timeline, right? You're not on anybody's timeline to where it might be a tough pill to swallow 1 year, but I guarantee you the next year, in the years after that, it's not going to happen again. It will be like, okay, I'm going to have my money in order. And here's the deal. Something similar happened to me where it was 2021. This was December 2020, right? I had zero money to spend during the last week of November. I had spent all of my money, and I was waiting for the U.S. Capitals to hit 200. They were at 190, 195, and I felt like I was in the penalty box at a hockey game, right? Where I'm watching for like 7 or 10 days. I'm just watching everybody high-five each other. And again, people are like, hey, Jim, how's it going? I'm like, oh, it's going good. I bought a lot this Q4, which I did, but I hadn't bought anything that last week of November. And then, of course, December 1st hit. That's when the U.S. Capitals went to 200, and things were starting to turn and burn again. So there will be some bottlenecks financially. So another thing I have here is to have one-on-one consultation. But what I mean with that is to have one-on-one conversations with a trusted reseller friend of mine. There's not necessarily one that I have every year. They're usually different because they're not always available, but it's usually the last week of September, and we talk about, okay, this is what I'm doing. I remember whenever I was selling Simpsons houses, I don't want to say competitive because we weren't, but it was refreshing to have somebody who had 50 Simpson houses and I myself that had a lot of Simpson houses. And we could talk about the prices that we're wanting to have it at, and if there is a price that we just won't sell it at. And I really think that helped operationally for the rest of the year. And it also helped my own peace of mind, because I was like, okay, I'm good to go. I've spoke with a trusted friend of mine. We're both set up for success. At the end of the day, what is there to fear, right? I mean, It is what it is. It's just that these are the 12 weeks of the year where a lot of things count. So having that one-on-one conversation. Now, last year and this year, I have, I guess you could say, 2 one-on-one conversations. I have one with a trusted reseller friend of mine, and I also have conversation with my partner in the warehouse, right? And we talk about what we're going to do. The Duplo dollhouse, I know is going to be a topic that we're going to talk about, because maybe a couple months ago, 3 or 4 months ago, I believe it was at a higher price on Amazon than what it is right now. And granted, it's been a good 3 or 4 weeks since I've checked that price. So the price might be fluctuating, but that, in a perfect world, that is a set that really needs to go this Q4, and it needs to go at a good price. And it will definitely go at a better price than the ATST Raiders. But there is a, I guess, psychological call with a trusted reseller friend of mine. And then there's more of a black and white binary call with my partner at the warehouse.
Yeah, I think with me, I'm doing a lot of research on YouTube and then the conversations that we have in the Patreon. And that's kind of where I'm getting my your floor price, right? And because I sell on Mercari and eBay versus Amazon, because I don't feel like I have the inventory that's ready to sell on Amazon yet, but you have a floor price and you have a starting price, right? So just getting that idea of, okay, I'm going to start it here. Where do I really want to say, yeah, I'm not going any lower, because you can bid back and forth on a few of those platforms. And sometimes, when you're bidding on them and you're trying to get these great sets for a discount, you can get into that trap of bidding too high. But you can go the other way too, where you get into the trap of selling too low because you get excited about selling the set. So I want to make sure I don't fall into that trap either.
Yeah, and another thing is the retirement list is always out there, right? And for me, Brick Fanatics, and I need to post the latest update on wolfofbricks.com. I really don't say it for a flex, but it really is one of the most accurate lists out there. So for those of you that may say to yourself, oh, I wonder what Jim chats about during the group chats, right? Well, we talk about the retiring list, and one of the questions that is asked to me is, what do I think of it? And I say, well, I think it's a good retirement list. At the same time, I want to see what Duplo sets are retiring, right? And the Duplo retirement list is out there. If you know how to get it, you know how to get it. And honestly, at the end of the call, if that's something that you wanted for me to share with you, I'm happy to share it. I have yet to share that with the Patreons yet. That will be in the upcoming group chat. But yeah, there are, I don't want to say last minute curveballs, but there might be an occasional set that LEGO will decide not to retire, like the Harry Potter Prisoner of Azkaban purple bus, the triple decker bus or double decker bus, whatever it is. That's thank you. That's good information. So there will probably be 1 or 2 changes to the retirement list. I wouldn't by any means say if there are 1 or 2 changes, it's an absolute catastrophe unless you had 90% of your inventory in one of those sets. But this is something that you always want to keep on tracking, right? You just want to keep on tracking. And the retirement list is definitely one of those things that I want to track, especially because it is coming to the end of the year.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really curious about some of them that are on the list with 4 modulars that are supposed to be retiring, and then also with everybody being so excited about the blacksmith set.
Yeah.
I wonder if LEGO is going to be like, oh, it's skyrocketing in sales. We're going to keep it on the shelves,
right?
Not, and just play with us a little bit.
Yeah, because I think I could be wrong. I think there's 4 LEGO Ideas sets retiring, and they could probably afford to keep one off of that retirement list.
Right.
But to be honest, I mean, I think, and of course we're talking about Q4, but not reviewing specific sets, but I think that I don't want to say that would be a blessing if it didn't retire. It would be a blessing in the sense that there's more opportunity to buy. So, but at the same time, if they hold it back, that might be, I'm sure there's 1 or 2 rookie LEGO resellers out there that's all they bought, right? And that's all their money. And they might have to fold and go belly up if the medieval blacksmith did not retire. Something else that I mention this occasionally, but I feel like I mention this just for my own peace of mind, just because I always want to track it, is there's certain supplies during Q4 that I want to make sure that I'm always buying every year. So, the Black Friday weekend is whenever I buy my paper from Staples or Office Depot. That's the cheapest time of the year. I'll buy cases of that. And it's also during the time where Uline will usually have a free shipping promotion, right? And if you're ordering $300 worth of boxes from Uline, the shipping on that is usually around $40. So that is something whenever they have a free promotion, I'll say to myself, okay, what exactly is online where I could potentially take advantage of that versus just constantly ordering from Amazon. So when it comes to Q4 and the middle of November, that's whenever I look at the operational expenses and what I should and shouldn't buy during that time.
Yeah, for me, I actually I have a garage full of boxes. I've just been gathering them over the years or over the year, and anything that's like, oh, this would be great for this set. I know this one would fit in this box. I've been keeping it. So part of my action items is actually to go through and see which boxes I can get rid of because
Right.
the set's not going to fit in them. So as I go through and figure out what my inventory really is for the quarter, go through and make sure I have enough of those boxes and break down all the others. So very bootstrapped.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, let me just double check my list. I think that is pretty much all that I have. And I'm happy to review it. It's having at least one conversation with a trusted reseller. In this case, also the gentleman at the warehouse that is in charge of my inventory, constantly looking at the cash flow, what's coming in and what's going out, especially at the beginning of October, because that's when there's a lot of great Target deals out there that really aren't mentioned on YouTube that much. I have buy and exclamation points. You definitely want to, if you're not buying focused yet, you want to at least to try and have that mindset. And I remember what my first buy list, if you want to call it, was. I bought, and the set number escapes me, but in my opinion, it's one of the best back caves that was ever released. But it was the same year that Olivia's house retired. They were selling $70 Olivia houses for $40. Same with the back cave. It was a $70 back cave going for $40. There were some Friends sets. There was the Dolphin Cruiser. And that's whenever I started getting into Friends sets. That's whenever I discovered Rapunzel and how much of a cash cow Rapunzel sets are that a lot of people don't talk about, right? So that's kind of what my, I don't want to say intense first year buying was, but that's what it looked like. I have Cutting Your Losses, which hopefully this will be the only time that I do that. I have Being Focused on the Retirement List. And also one of the first things is just decide what I'm going to sell at the beginning of Q4.
Sounds solid. Yeah, for me, because all of my inventory is in closets or on shelves, I have to pull all of the inventory out and reorganize it so that I can access the sets that I'm going to sell. So that's another little added step for us newbies. Unless somebody else out there is way better organized. At first I was like, oh, I'm gonna organize the boxes by when I'm gonna sell them and have that all. So when you're buying and you're just going for the deals, and then you realize that not every set retires at the same time, which I didn't know at the time. I was just like, oh, I'm just gonna organize it by when I purchase it, and then it's all over the place now. So I hope to be better about that next year, of just kind of being aware of what possibly could be retiring and being better at not buying new sets. I am a Lego fan, and that is a big hindrance in reselling because I get excited about the sets just like everybody else. And I have to I'm getting much better. Like I used to buy sets day one for my fiance because he's a huge Star Wars Lego fan. So there's every Star Wars Lego set, which I've now gone through my savings and can't do it every set on day one anyway. But realizing that 90% of sets go on sale, so there's zero reason to buy day one except for that excitement, and especially for investing. So I plan to not purchase so many sets that I'm unaware of a retirement coming up, unless of course there's some 70% off sale, which can be a hint that it might retire soon anyway, because they're trying to get it off the shelves, right?
You're definitely not alone. I mean, I'm going to be honest. I'm looking at that new Star Wars Ghost set, and I'm like,
Yes.
I mean, in addition to that, I mean, they're talking about next year, the 2024, there's going to be a Millennium Falcon the same size as the Super Star Destroyer. And a part of me is saying, you know, I could just bricklink the first mid-size Millennium Falcon for like $70, right? And then
Yeah.
and just call it a day. So yeah, I mean, I've spent more on Bricklink since Brickworld Chicago than I have in my entire life, and it's yeah. And we'll talk about mocks. And there's actually something that I when we're done with this call, I wanted your opinion on, because I wasn't sure if this would be a good idea or not. So yeah, I think that pretty much does it for this video. Now, this is going to be a 3-part series, if you want to call it that. This is going to be the first video. The intention of this video is to talk before Q4. The second one will be to talk in the middle of Q4, see how it's going. And then come January, we'll look back and the dust will be cleared, and we should all be smiling. And we could do a recap on that. So that's it for me. Haley, do you have anything else?
Yep, I think that's good.
Awesome. So if you like this long form comment, please give us a like and say something in the comments section. I'm curious to hear what kind of feedback people have for this video right here. As always, I am Jim. That is Haley. Always go out there and get it.